News Talk ZB.
Evening, 7 past 5. So is or isn't there a hole in Labour's fiscal plan? Jacinda Ardern has today reiterated there is nothing wrong with her party's spending plans.
I stand by the operating allowance as it stands within our fiscal plan. I also stand by the fact that, unlike the government, we have included in all of our operational allowances, we've included in the budget lines for health and education, all of the expectation around inflation and population growth. That's something the government hasn't done over the past 9 years. We're being transparent in that in our fiscal plan, and I stand by it.
But National Stephen Joyce is adamant Labor will come up short.
The only possible alternative explanation, which I don't believe, by the way, is that they are literally going to spend no more money over a 2-year period. That's just completely unrealistic. As somebody who's been involved in the presentation of budgets for the last 9 years, that would be what I would call cloud cuckoo land.
Now, Cameron Bagrie is ANZ's chief economist, and Cameron, evening to you.
Good evening.
So can you clear up this? Which part of the budget we're fighting over talking about here and how Labour's numbers stack up?
Well, if you step back, within the budget numbers, there's an allocation for further initiatives which can be centred towards tax, towards new spending. For each budget for the next 4 years, about $1.7 billion a year. So there's a big pool of money to play with. Now, what Labor has come out with is a defined package on what they're going to be spending over the next 3 years, and it's quite detailed. But what it does is it eats into a fair bit of those operating initiative packages. And the real challenge is, look, they've been transparent. Yeah, that's wonderful. We know what we're going to get. Yeah, but there's not a lot of money left in the kitty jar for the 2019 and 2020 budgets. Yeah, things are going to be incredibly tight because they've detailed very strong packages for the likes of health. And if you look at what's left, there's basically nothing left over for law and order, and other core government services.
So have they spent all their forward operating allowances then?
Yeah, they've given an indication about where they're going to be putting the money. Now, they're putting about $800 million a year into health every year, so that's a very strong commitment. There's about $400 million a year going into education. Whether that includes teachers' pay or not, we're just not quite sure, but you're already at sort of 1.2, 1.3 billion, and you got 1.7. Now, realistically, when we get round to the 2019-2020 budget, there's still 18 months, 30-odd months away. It's a long time. There will be pressure there because the government's a thirsty beast. You need to throw money at it to keep the wheels sort of turning. But, good on them for being transparent. We know what we're going to get, but there's going to be a lot of pressure, or there's going to be big challenges in regards to meeting the spending restraint required for the 2019 budget.
Right. Can they do that? Long term, it won't work like this, will it?
Well, realistically, there is going to be pressure. And the pressure will be all one way. Whether they can reallocate money, cancel some programs and shift it into other areas, that's a possibility. Look, do we need to run what we could probably debate about the size of the surpluses we're going to run? Maybe we run a little bit lower surpluses, take on a little bit more debt. Maybe we do tweak the tax levers. But, of course, the more you put into one area, the less you've got available for other parts of government services. And that's the real big challenge because the 2019-2020 budgets are looking incredibly tight. There's no money left in the lolly jar.
Can you clarify, so if most, if not all, the operating allowance has already been spent, what happens in areas like police and justice science, all the stuff that they actually have to, it's ongoing expenditure? What happens with that?
Well, that's where the pressure points are. And that's the critical issue in regard to, are we going to run those with a zero baseline increase? Is that credible or not? Well, can people make their own assessment? Do we choose to maybe borrow a little bit more money, to plough a little bit more money into those core government services, maybe run lower operating surplus? Do we look at tweaking the tax lever?
Okay.
Those are options that get put on the table, but at the moment...
if Treasury allocates, $1.7, $1.8 billion a year, and there's actually now zero, that means there is a hole every year.
Well, it just makes things very challenging because what has been put on the table is that there's been a very substantial allocation made towards health, another big allocation made towards education, and that eats into those provisions. But it's a very transparent thing to do in regard to saying this is where we plan to spend our money. But of course, because you make that commitment, you don't now have an awful lot of options or wriggle room when you head towards the 2019-2020 budget.